Welcome everyone. Today we have a gigantic update post officially from Diablo 4, and you can see all the information over here. And what I wanted to do in this video is I want to provide you guys with a shorter summary and also focused understanding of exactly what is happening and how could you get more bonus monsters and butchers in this particular update. So there's a lot of changes, a lot of buffs and a lot of nerfs to different classes. We'll go through in this video, and we'll go through the other updates and also information which could be very good about the buffs to the butchers, about finding different things, and also the sellers is actually updated massively for more bonus loots. So I have found a lot of videos about regarding to the elements of the buffs and also the gameplays and also, getting more goblins and also more butchers in certain events. And I'll show you guys in this video. So let's go through this video. Very excited. Now coming over to our notes. What I do is I'll have the links available for you guys in case you want to have further reading and also go into things in details. So here I have taken screenshots and also provide a summary for you guys for a better understanding and also, just to highlight everything. The first particular post about the official update is that they have listened and they have changed a lot of things after the beta update and after the beta feedbacks with open beta. So let's go over here and also have a look at what's happening. The first highlight is going to be the dungeon changes for Diablo 4. And because we only played the first zone, we can see there will be a lot of changes to some of the dungeons in the first zone. And here you can see that the dungeon's layout has been changed, that this is designed to reduce backtracking. So that means there's less going back and forth for the players as you clear the dungeons. Now you might be wondering, hey, clearing the dungeons, that's not a big deal, right? I can reset dungeons. But as we look in the last part of the video, they actually took away the dungeon reset, which we'll talk about the implications of this very soon. Now, this is the biggest part, and this is what I want to highlight with you guys. This is actually, I'm going to highlight in red just to show you guys. So the dungeon events have been buffed massively. They went from 10% chance of getting a dungeon event to 60% chance. And in case you guys are wondering, I do believe goblins and also butchers are part of the dungeon events. So getting additional butchers, getting additional goblins is a part of the dungeon events. Of course, you can also get dungeon events like the cursed chest and also the shires and the shines. So there is multiple dungeon events that you can find in a dungeon. And with a 60% chance, you're almost likely to get one of those, getting a cursed chest, cursed shine, getting goblins, or getting butchers. And this is actually very good in farming butchers if you know the correct method, which we'll talk about at the end of the video. Now, of course, I do understand, and it is likely, guys, the chance of getting butchers and goblins is less than the chance of getting cursed items like the chests or the shines. So keep in mind, it might not be like, 60% split evenly. It might be like 50% of the 60% is going to those two, and maybe 10% is going to the butchers and also goblins. So keep in mind of that. We'll discover the rates as we go play the game. Now over here, you can see a lot of changes with dungeon gameplay, and in order to give you guys a better summary, we'll have the notes over here. So over here, you can see the developers have listened to our feedbacks. And if you guys remember my previous beta feedback from Reddit, we talk about that one of the missions for the dungeons is to kill all the monsters. Wouldn't it be good if the monsters actually come to attack the players? Well, they listened, and now the monsters will come and seek the players when there's a small number of monsters. And this is a really big change, right? The next thing is Eminence. The dungeon quest resource collection now provide more reward. So what that is it will provide us with more resource and also cooldown reduction. And also the channeling time will be reduced. Now, in case you guys are like me wondering what is Eminence is, so if you come over to this video from Spider, and you can see that killing those monsters over here, or takeaways, killing those Eminence collector monsters over here will increase your collection of Eminence from the Eminence carriers. And those are some of the dungeon quests that allows you to do and also complete. So this is actually what Eminence is. I was like, what is that thing? So it's one of the dungeon quests. Now, as we keep going, we can see that there is a bonus movement speed when you carry quest items. And this is actually really good because you also provide this to your party members when you're carrying those boxes and also stones. Now, in case you guys didn't know, there's a unique boost that provides you with bonus critical rate based on your bonus movement speed. So the bonus movement speed can be somewhat abused and also made use for classes that want movement speed and also for uniques that buffs you with movement speed. So, and that's a good change, right? Now the developers have also reduced channeling time, and also upon returning the objectives to the location of the quest, players now gain full reset of health, resource, and also cooldowns. Now, how would you use this? Is that against, if you see a butcher in a dungeon, and in case you have difficulty to kill the butcher because they actually buff the butcher, or in case you want to have your cooldowns for the goblins, what you can do is you can do the dungeon event and reset your entire cooldown and also resource, and then you can lay traps before this, you can do long cooldowns and then reset everything and do everything again. So you basically have 2 ultimates and you basically have lots of reset. So this could be a great strategy against certain events in the dungeon. And because the events increase from 10 to 60%, this is actually pretty massive. So this is one of the ways we can be farming those special monsters by completing the objectives at the same time as triggering those events. Very good, right? Now finally, they also talk about doors having minimaps and also upgraded structures for more interactions. So you can see the last over here. I don't think those 2 are massive, but the bigger ones are the ones over here that they listen and also they buffed. Now coming over to the classes, I also made some summary notes for the classes in case you guys don't want to go through all the notes, right? And also my personal highlights. The first one with the general buffs for the classes is that the duration against elite monsters will be doubled with stuns and also freeze. And this makes certain stunning build and also the builds that provides bonus damage when enemies are crowd controlled even better. And this is against elites, which is very good. Now all the classes will be provided with a crowd control removal. And do you know what that means? This means all the classes are fair when PvP, and also all the classes will be benefiting against certain boss mechanics, which would be very essential into surviving into hardcore. So this is not bad. And finally, the developers have said many of the legendary powers have been updated for the effectiveness. So there will be changes to the legendary aspects and also codex that we don't know about since the open beta. And this could be interesting for builds in the launch of the game. Now let's briefly go through some of the buffs and also nerfs to the class changes for each of the class. The first one we have is going to be Barbarian. Now this one took me a while to read. The first part is the developers actually nerfed the Barbarian's overall passive damage by 10% for everything. And one of the reasons, which you're going to see in the later posts, is they realized some of the skills were too overpowered in the beta. Wow, who we're going to blame? We're blaming the streamers who made it 300,000 plus damage with Barbarians at level 25. So there is a 10% overall damage reduction for Barbarians. And because they were doing massive damage in the beta, right? Now some of the skills have been adjusted to compensate for this nerf, but not all the skills. We don't know exactly which one. Now on the mix side, I said the Barbarians have mixed buff and also nerf. It's because there are some buffs. So the saving grace is there is a buff to Whirlwind. The Whirlwind will do more damage and also spend more resource. This is not a bad thing, because when I was playing Whirlwind Barbarian, you're constantly in the middle of the fray with enemies, you're constantly having so much fury. So dealing more damage is a big buff to Barbarians that's going for Whirlwind. And finally, I don't think we use double swing that much. This is one of the skills with Barbarian, which allows you to stun enemies when you hit them. Now this now refunds full fury on controlling enemies when you stun them. So maybe this is a good method of using a stunning skill against players in PvP and getting more resource back. So those are my takes for the Barbarians, and let me know what you guys think about it. I really don't like the nerf though. Now coming over to the Druid. Oh boy, the Druid got a big buff, guys. Big buff. So the Druid, everything's looking good. There's a huge, heavily increased damage to Companions damage. Well, if you've seen our previous video with the Druid Companions, time to build that, right? There's also a lower cooldown for the ultimate spells. The Druid also get improvement to Maul and also Pulverize, which is great. More Earth spells, right? Because you can turn Pulverize into Earth spell. And also the Druid Shift transformation now is providing with a back to human form. What that means is their passives allows you to get more resource when you come back to human forms. And this allows us to change back and forth, which is not bad. So everything's positive for the Druid. Now coming over to Necromancer. Necromancer definitely got a bit of nerf. So the first nerf is the summoned minions are designed to be weaker. They will die more often. Well, the way they say it is that they want us to use raised corpses more. To compensate this, the developers have buffed the Book of the Dead, but to how much, we're not sure. Maybe 10 or 20%, but that is definitely not as great as, weaker summons, because my AFK Necromancer build is not looking great. Now there is a huge nerf to the corpse explosion, because the biggest, OP broken build in Necromancer was the Blood Mist with corpse explosion, and you can see the damage for corpse explosion have been nerfed. We don't know how much though. And finally, there are some color changes for skeletons. Because I'm planning which class I want to play, the nerf to Necromancer we'll definitely talk about in a specific video. So here you can see me going through all the patch notes, but then I'll make future videos about planning depending on those nerfs, after the live stream of course. Now coming over to the Rogue, we can see that the Rogue have gotten an overall buff. So the buff is to the Super Fetch skill, which allows this to have bonuses that is increased. The Rogue also gets multiple buffs to their passives. Exactly which passive we're not sure, but Rogue passives are really good. Increase critical hit chance, increase injure enemy chance, vulnerability damage, and also increase the lucky hit chances. Those are really good. Now the only nerf to the Rogue is that the imbuement skills all got a nerf to the cooldowns. So that means the cooldowns have been increased. Now in case you guys are wondering, I believe the imbuement skills in the beta is about 9 seconds cooldown. When we do the Rogue focus video, we'll talk about the implication of this. Because there's also a perk with the Traps Rogue that allows you to reset your imbuement skills. And this resets all the imbuement skills. And we have made a previous Rogue build with a Poison Rogue about this. So check that out if you want to know more how to reset your spells, which is even longer with cooldowns. Now over here we have the notes for sources. It is gigantic because we also include the developers notes over here. And what you're going to see is the sources are getting a mixed changes to the class. So the first one is charge bolt damage and also resource cost is buffed. So both the increased damage and also the reduction to the resource that you'll be spending, which is really good. They really want us to use this spell. The nerf to the chain lightning is the damage and also effectiveness against bosses, which is kind of understandable because this spell can be somewhat abusable. There's also a nerf, I believe, to the incinerate cooldown reduction bonus that is getting reduced. Now the rewarding is quite interesting. So it's a decrease of cooldown for the incinerate skill bonuses. Now, firewalls now spawns enemies, or firewalls now spawns on the enemies. This is definitely a buff. So when you have the firewall enchantment, this will all now spawn on the enemies, which is great. And this is definitely good for the enchantment bonus. And finally, a small buff to the mages or the sources is that the media enchantment, which provide us with a 3% free media, now have a higher increased lucky hit chance. So maybe the 3% goes to 5%, 7%, we're not sure yet. Now coming over to some of the UI changes, I don't think there's anything that is massive, but remember my feedback in beta guys, my beta feedback video, we talk about the display of the stats before the materials when you collect the character display. And they listened, we did it guys, very happy for this one. Now coming over to the notes for encounters, you can see that the biggest focus is the butchers have been reworked to difficulty which presents more challenges to World Tier 3 and also 4. So although butchers were kind of strong and OP back in World Tier 2, right? At World Tier 2, butchers are getting even stronger in World Tier 3 and also 4. You may be wondering why. It's because there are multiple ways to get more butchers now. And this is why they're making them stronger for a better challenge and also more kind of immersed environment. Now there are also some changes to other bosses with the difficulty and also mechanics and also a few fixes. I don't think those are too highlighted, so we won't talk about this too much. And if you guys do want to read, I'll have the link for the full article and also the notes over here for you guys. Now coming over to one of the biggest changes, and this will be the Cellars. The Cellars is getting a chance to trigger dungeon events in the Cellars, and this is going to be good. Cellars are very small, and on the next part you're going to see the dungeons reset has been disabled. So what that means is Cellars are like the new dungeons which you can kind of reset, and that's great. Because the Cellars can now trigger dungeon events, we can expect more butchers and also more goblins in the Cellars. Now in case you guys are wondering what can you get from the Cellars, you can see this video found Diablo. He is saying that he found 3 treasure goblins in one cellar. You can see on the minimap, 3 treasure goblins in one cellar. 1's running over here and 2 is running over here. And this is massive because we know now we can go farm cellars for multiple rewards, including chance encounters with butchers, chance to spawn cursed chests and also the cursed giants, chance to get more goblins, and also a guaranteed chest and also elite reward. And this is great, right? Let me know what you guys think about cellars. There'll be method and also parties that'll be farming cellars. And finally, we have the quality of life. Now there are some bug fixes in our quality of life. The biggest thing for me is the infinite attack with move cancelling is getting fixed. In case you guys didn't know, we also have a previous video about the infinite attack bug, and it was getting a little concerning. I wanted to make a video to address about this and how we can kind of abuse it, and that's getting nerfed. Oh, that's getting fixed, which is really good. I'm happy for this, because this is definitely not designed in the game to do this, and it's gonna break my hand, right, when I click so fast. Now, one thing you want to notice over here is the changes. I'm not sure this is a quality of life like buff, because they took away reset dungeon button. Now, why would they take away the reset dungeon button? Not to make our life difficult, but I think with the increased chance of getting more events and also with different changes, especially this one over here. So let's come over here and show you guys the first one. So here, there's 10% to 60% chance of getting an event in the dungeon. If you abuse this with reset dungeon and not complete the dungeon and just go for the events, this might be more profitable for the players. By taking away the reset dungeon, you can't abuse this anymore, and you can't abuse the method of finding more butchers by resetting the dungeons. So this is a downside. This is definitely not great. I wonder why and if they're gonna adjust this. And finally, of course, on the topic of how to get more butchers, more goblins in the dungeons now with the sellers. What I'm thinking is, we'll be looking for dungeons that have the shortest time to complete. Dungeons with quests to kill certain monsters, maybe 3 or 4 monsters, and dungeons that collect the eminence, which allows us to get more resource and also cooldown reduction. Dungeons that with a smaller map, and dungeons with the ability to get us more events in the dungeon, because the dungeon is getting a massive buff to the triggers. And when we clear the dungeon, now we have to clear the dungeon, guys, because we can't reset the dungeon, we can get more butchers this way. And finally, of course, we will be looking into methods of kind of abusing or maybe finding a friend with sellers. So how I plan to find sellers to find more goblins and also more butchers is maybe I get a friend to find a seller, I find a seller. So first we clear my seller together, then we can try to clear his seller together. I'm not sure exactly how we can kind of abuse this, but back in Diablo 3, there's method of getting a lot more rewards in the sellers. And knowing there's a guaranteed chest and a guaranteed elite, even though we don't find butchers or goblins or the cursed events, this can still be very good. Because we come back over here, you can see more goblins in the cellars. And this was before the change. After the change, you might only see this like 5 or 10% of the time. After the changes, you might see this 20 or 30% of the time, which is going to be great for farming certain uniques. And I want my butchers clever, right? So quite excited for those changes. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think about those changes, guys? I'm getting quite excited for the game. Now, before you go, and if you guys didn't know, we have a new YouTube channel. And if you guys haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe and check out the behind the scenes and also fun clips and also more stories about us. And then you get to know me a little more personally instead of just reading the news and also the games, right? So I want to share a little bit more with you guys. So make sure you check this channel out if you're interested about Matt and also Uni. She's really funny too, and she's really shy. So I want to give her a surprise and do a shout out for the new channel to get some subscribers. Thank you guys. I'll see you guys next time.